Winning at sports and at sports broadcasting means changing things up.
Just like La Quinta Inns and Suites is changing up their look.
A renovated lobby that's so contemporary it even makes Golic look cool.
Yes, it does. And a totally updated fitness center that even has Wingo feeling like a workout.
I'm ripped. Plus plenty of comfortable spaces to hang out.
Yep, this La Quinta look definitely has a vibe of victory.
So you can just relax, refresh, and get ready for your next big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com. Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests will join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Adrian Wojnarowski, our fine NBA insider, will join us in a few minutes to talk about what may be the repercussions of the Rockets storming the castle.
Oh, yeah.
And going into the Clippers' locker facility at the Staples Center after the heated loss.
There's going to be some discipline.
There will be some repercussions.
Can't do that.
No, you cannot. We'll get into that. Plus, John Gruden will join us. At the bottom of the hour, talk about his foray back into coaching, what
talk
it means
about coaching
to him.
Things.
Yeah.
Actual coaching
things and not breaking down game. Well, which will be part of it, but in a different way as he's gone back to the Raiders and hopes to lead them back to glory. This hour of Golic and Wingo is brought to you by La Quinta Inns and Suites. Book at LQ.com and win at business. I did not win in the animal kingdom.
You did not. I didn't want to correct you.
No, you should have.
Well, I knew I knew it too. Our friends in the Twitterverse were going to correct you multiple times.
Yeah.
We were talking about.
I tried to make the analogy because the Jags are chirping going into this game, and I said, I don't want to say a leopard can change its spots, and then I was like, well, Jags can change their stripes. Of course. Jaguars have spots.
You can't say of course when you made a mistake.
No,
like
I'm admitting it now.
Okay.
It just fell out of my mouth the wrong way. The mouth salad was wrong.
The very elusive striped jaguar.
Listen, it's if you can find one of those in the animal kingdom, you have found gold.
That's exactly right. It's science.
It's science that I just made up.
Yes, you did.
That was not good. So we've fixed that. How about this though? We'll get it. We got a lot to get into. We'll do it, but let's start with what's trending. I think this is very cool. North and South Korean athletes will march together at the Winter Olympics opening ceremony under a unified flag representing the entire peninsula. South Korea announced on Wednesday.
Listen, when this came up before that they were having discussions, one thing you're going to find out on this show is there will be no political talk.
None.
Whatsoever. So this is from the athlete side of it is, and we always look at it, or I certainly do as a former athlete, from the athlete side of athletes who train for the Olympics again every 4 years and the work and the sacrifice that they put in. And to me, it's always a shame when they're used as political pawns, whether to compete or not to compete. And I understand there are bigger things in the world than sports, and I'll let the smarter people get into that, not me. I talk from the athlete side. So, boy, I'm very happy that this worked out to where these athletes are going to compete, and then the way they're going to united under the one flag and competing. I think that is just a great win right there.
It certainly is. Now, the decision was made during ongoing negotiations between the two Koreas, North and South, taking place in the DMZ, or the demilitarized zone, between the two countries. Not only will they march together under the same flag, because, the Winter Olympics will be in Pyeongchang, which is in South Korea. They will also field a joint North and South Korea women's ice hockey team for the Winter Olympics, which begins early next month. So not only will they march together under one flag, they're actually going to field a team combined
very cool.
of athletes from both North and South Korea.
Sometimes what sports can do is very, very cool.
Right. I think that's awesome. So, there's been so much tension in the world, obviously, about what's going on in North Korea, and there were a lot of concerns about the Olympics.
Yes.
Will it be safe? The fact that this is happening makes you feel a lot better about the entire ceremony.
Completely agree.
And you love the Olympics.
I love the Olympics. I love this next Olympic story that we're about to do. This is great as well.
We need to make a movie out of this one.
Yep.
30 years after a team of Jamaican bobsledders inspired the Disney movie Cool Runnings with their unlikely appearance at the Calgary Winter Olympics, the country is sending its first female bobsled team to compete in Pyeongchang.
Yep, the Jamaican team is going to compete in a field of 20 sleds. That also includes a team of Nigerian women who are themselves the first athletes from their country to compete at the Winter Olympics. Again,
awesome.
Fantastic.
So we need to make a movie out of this one, too.
Yeah.
By the way, what is it about the 88 Olympics in Calgary? Because
I know.
We had Cool Runnings come out of that, And you remember the ski jumper, Eddie the Eagle?
Oh, Eddie the Eagle. How about that?
And they made that into a movie.
There's parts of me that would love to try that, and parts of me that know I would end up in parts as I landed.
Well,
it is one of the coolest things to see those guys and gals take off from that thing and just be flying the way they are.
Yeah, I did a lot of skiing when I was younger, and I still do a little of it, not nearly as much as I used to, but I would always be a jumper. I'd like to go off the rocks and the cliffs and get big air.
Man.
And then there was and one of the resorts we went to once, there was a ski jump, so we sort of, let's try it, but in our downhill skis, not in the regular skis.
Right.
Never been more terrified.
Yeah.
I mean, suddenly it's like, really? This is actually happening.
I can't imagine how terrifying that is, though one of the most fun things for me to watch in the Winter Olympics is the downhill.
Yeah.
They're
insane.
Talk about nuts.
Yeah.
So cool to watch.
To this day, one of my favorite Olympic memories is watching Bill Johnson win the '84 Olympics in Sarajevo. I mean, came out of nowhere and just attacked it. And it's funny, in the Olympics, we've had some Americans like Tommy Moe. Did it in 94 or 92 in Lillehammer as well. Just came out of nowhere, the American downhill.
And obviously Lindsey Vonn, she's been able to do, a lot of injuries, but certainly a lot of wins.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, this one's always stuck in my mind. Franz Klammer won Kitzbühel in Austria in 1976.
You always hear, the downhill, they had a fall and they got hurt. Really? They did?
Yeah.
Let's see, they're going 50 miles an hour and they fell on frozen snow. Okay.
Peekaboo Street as well. And by the way, snow is a loose definition of what they use, because the downhill is basically ice.
Yeah.
Because they don't want snow, because snow is soft and fluffy, and it makes them slower. They want to go as fast as they can. I mean, they've actually had to cancel downhill races because they've had too much snow.
Yeah.
They would prefer ice. Yeah. Just give me a little bit that I can put a metal edge in and make it around the gates, and I'm fine.
Another level of crazy.
It is a tip of the cap and the
Absolutely
helmet to those people.
I'll be there watching, not doing.
I will salute to you. And then the final what's trending story, that bakery in Duval County, Florida.
Yeah, again, a bakery there sent 7 turnovers, the pastries, to Ben Roethlisberger, one for each turnover he had against the Jags this season. And they sent a note that said, "Dear Big Ben, we want to thank you for the amazing season so far. Beating you this year not once but twice in the Berg. Well, that was amazing. We appreciated the turnovers you gave us over our season, so in turn, we wanted to give you to get a taste of 7 turnovers. So here are our very best apple, blueberry, and cherry turnovers. Sincerely, the amazing city of Jacksonville, or as you know it, Saxonville."
That's really good. That's
awesome.
An expert lever troll. By the way,
it really is.
The odds that Ben actually eats any of those.
He's a large man.
Yeah, I think he'll pass them along to somebody
else. Their apple, blueberry, and cherry turnovers. I'm not a big fan of fruit in my pastry.
You just want pastry.
Yeah, now I'll go apple because I like apple pie.
But you just had fruit in your Pop-Tart.
Yeah, that's more of a compote. It's not, in a Pop-Tart. It's kind of a compote.
Oh, my gosh. I did not know you were that specific when it came to your desserts.
Not like when they have cake and they put the fruit in the cake. No.
Why ruin a good sweet with something
exactly right.
healthy?
It's exactly right.
Good to know.
There you go.
All right, you ready to welcome in our next guest?
Well, I mean,
and he deserves a special welcome.
He certainly does.
Thank you very much. You guys are funny. I appreciate that.
Congrats on the award, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. That's nice of you to say. It really is.
Well, it's not us, by the way. That was Jerry. He did it all. We're just the big idiots that push the button.
He came in and brought it up, and Trey actually said, "No, I don't want to do anything."
I said I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
no, not true at all. Not true at all. But we appreciate you getting up early with us because you're out there on the West Coast. So congratulations first and foremost, and thanks for being with us. We do appreciate it.
No, thanks. That was certainly. I'll see if I can get my wife to put that in the house.
That should be your ringtone.
Oh yes, the ringtone.
That should be your ringtone now. We'll get that file sent to you every time they call your phone. That would be very good. It's like that Troy Aikman commercial.
That's it.
I live in the past.
Oh yeah, very good.
Okay, so let's go into the immediate past. What happened the other night at the Staples Center? We like to call it Breachgate now. We love the fact that you used that word, that somehow the Rockets penetrated the defenses of the Clippers locker room and breached the facility. But there are going to be some ramifications from this discipline-wise, right?
There will be, and I think that's the league. There's so many people to interview from the Clippers and Rockets and security, and I think NBA security. Spent all day yesterday going through this and this morning. I think, and what I reported last night was, as they're looking at this, I think Chris Paul, James Harden, the way it's being described now to me and I think to others is that they played more of a role of a peacemaker. I think Trevor Ariza was, I don't know if led the charge is the right way to put it, but certainly was the one making his way toward the Clipper locker room, got in there. Again, nobody went in there to fight. Ariza didn't go in there to fight. He did want to talk to Austin Rivers especially, and Blake Griffin. But, I think the role of a lot of these guys and what role did Rivers play who was not in the game, who was chirping from the sideline, who was getting into it with people verbally. Blake Griffin was on the court, had been physical with people in the course of the game. Did he go out of his way to brush against Mike D'Antoni? Was Mike D'Antoni on the court? Was he out on the playing surface? Was he on the sideline when Blake brushed up against him? Those are all the things the league is still looking at now and trying to determine penalties.
Two quick things. Number one, now that there may be discipline involved, I'm sure they're all going to downplay it. Number two, I just cannot stand when somebody is not playing and they're in street clothes and they're chirping on the sideline of any sport. I think that's just ridiculous. That's just me, personal opinion there. As far as discipline, Woj, one thing you always look for in sports when they're going to discipline is maybe precedent on something like this that maybe happened that you can rely on for future discipline. Is there anything like this that they can look at and say, oh, this is like this or this is like that? Can you think of anything that is close to what happened?
There isn't. And I think that, too, remember, I think that it will probably be taken into consideration here. Again, they got into the locker room, but it wasn't as if Ariza came through the door and then charged across the room. The way it was described to me, there would have been a clear path if he wanted to just make a beeline for the locker area where the Clipper players were sitting. That didn't happen. I think he wanted really to just be heard. And I wrote this the night, in the moments after, as it was described to me by people who were in the room, that it was the classic NBA scene. I quoted someone as saying it was a classic NBA scene. No one was going to fight. And I think the fact that he went into the locker room, that the Rockets did go into the locker room, which is, I don't know if it's unprecedented, but it's rare. I think the league is going to have to, I will be surprised if there isn't a short suspension, whether it's just one game. I'll be surprised if it's only monetary, if it's only a fine.
All right, Adrian Wojnarowski with us, our NBA insider, getting up early for us on the West Coast. The other thing that's sort of been talked about this week, Woj, is a story from Dave McMenamin about the Cavs and their struggles. They've lost 4 straight, and the issue and the belief, rather, inside the locker room that the players aren't sure that this can be fixed. We've seen them struggle at the start of the season. Then they ripped off, 18 wins in 19 games against some lesser opponents, but they've really been struggling since 2-8 since Christmas Day. They've been able to hit the reset button and make it all the way to the finals the last few years. What do you think of what we're hearing about the struggles with this team right now?
Well, listen, I think this has been since the day they did the Kyrie Irving trade, this has been a diminished team. It just is. They weren't going to be better because of that trade, and they're not. And listen, I think there's 29 other teams in the league who aren't sure they're good enough to beat Golden State. And I think Cleveland's one of them. Now, Cleveland may still have the best player in the world, but remember this, too, and in LeBron James' time in Cleveland, in Miami, this is kind of the hallmark of the personality of the teams. And he feeds off of this. He feeds off of the drama and all these things. That's the personality of his teams, is sometimes that up and down, that being very emotional with how it all goes. It's not steady. It's a different personality than Steph Curry's teams have had. And so you have to, I think that's part of it too, when LeBron's leading a team, and he's thrived with that. He's found a way to make that work for him. But the drama and a lot of that stuff has played out around his groups whenever he's wherever he's been. And I think this is part of that too.
Do you think this team, they do have a number one pick from Brooklyn, whether they use that or something else, do you think this team makes a significant move by way of trade before the season's over to make that run?
I think they try to make a move here. They're continuing to try to make a move between now and the trade deadline on February 8th. But I don't know that there's a move for them to make that puts them over the top. I don't know that, if they're looking at this clearly, that there's one player out there, there's one move that changes everything for them, that all of a sudden puts them on a plane with Golden State. I don't think that move exists, and I'm not sure they believe that move exists. Now, they could get better, but what the Cavs are not going to do, and what Dan Gilbert, Kobe Altman, their GM, they're not going to use that Brooklyn draft pick that they got in the Kyrie deal, which was by far the most important piece to that deal. Right. That's what they cared about the most. They're not going to use that on a player who's going to be a rental and then watch LeBron walk out the door, and then they're going to be stuck in a rebuild without that draft pick. I still think it's the odds of them using that pick in a deal are slim, and without using that pick, they don't have the assets to bring in anybody significant.
Adrian Wojnarowski with us, our ESPN NBA insider. So you mentioned there's nobody out there that you think that they could get with a trade that would bring them to compete with the Warriors. The simple question then becomes, can they get something, or can they fix the ship to get back to the finals, where a LeBron James team has been, 7 straight NBA finals? Is this team going to be able to find its way back to that level even?
I believe they are. I still think they're, like you said, we've seen this in other years, but I do think this. I think they can get to the finals. I don't think Golden State, to me, and I think to most people's standard, they're the best team by far, and that's the era we're living in. They're an historically great team, and Cleveland is not deep enough. They don't have the depth of talent right now to compete with that, and I think also you look in the East, Toronto is much better. And I know we're talking about Boston, who's been great this year. I think this is a different Toronto team. I think this team will compete differently in the playoffs. DeMar DeRozan is having the best year of his career, and they've done such a great job in Toronto of drafting young players, developing young players, and building out a bench with them, and even some of their starting lineup. That's going to make them more formidable. So Cleveland will have a tougher road to the final than they did last year, but I think they can get it together enough to still be able to get out of the East, but they're not ready to compete with the Warriors, and I still don't see a team out there that can.
Well, speaking of that, over in the West, you have Oklahoma City currently in the 5 slot, sitting at 24-20, loaded up a bit for this year with Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. They committed to that through the year, or will they look to move a guy like Paul George?
They're still committed to it, and in talking to their front office. I mean, when they traded for Paul George, they knew that there'd come a point here at the trade deadline where they could potentially have a decision to make based on whether Paul George was going to stay in free agency, whether he'd leave. But they also knew that Paul George probably wasn't going to be decided by February 8th, one way or another. He wasn't going to be positive he was going to come back, and he probably wouldn't have ruled it out. And that's where they are right now. Paul George is open to the idea of staying in Oklahoma City, but he's going to see how this season plays out and what this team looks like and how it advances into the postseason and how this works with Westbrook and Carmelo and Steven Adams. And I think for Oklahoma City, getting back a significant package for Paul George when teams know he's really just a rental and he's headed into free agency will be difficult. And right now, that their best avenue is to continue to make a run with this team, hope they get it together, and then have the kind of postseason that makes Paul George think this can work and I want to stay.
Well, again, that's to be determined, but it certainly looks like they're going to try and make it work. Woj, we appreciate you being with us. Once again, congratulations not only on getting up early and being with us, but on the major award, as they say in a Christmas story. It's fragile, so treat it with care. Woj, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thanks, Woj.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Hello, I'd like to deposit this to checking.
Fate is a fickle master.
What?
The future is uncertain.
Okay, and what's my account balance?
The horizon is cloudy. I see a long, treacherous voyage filled with great peril.
Look, can I just get a deposit slip or something?
A fortune bank teller. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I see a yellow-eyed serpent and a low APR.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Little Leonard Skinnard powering us through the last half hour of Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and we could not be more delighted to welcome in, for the first time on this show, as the, once again, head coach of the Oakland Raiders, our pal, our buddy, John Gruden. Coach, how are you this morning?
Hey, good morning, man. I love that Leonard Skinnard, man. Thank you very much for that.
Come on, give me 3 steps. What's your name? That's the good stuff right there, John, as you well know.
Yes, it is.
Hey, congratulations. We're so happy for you that you're back doing what you love. John, when did you know that you had to try it again? Because everybody at some point gets that itch to scratch, and coaches tend to do it a lot. But when did you know, hey, man, I got to go back and I got to be a coach again?
You know what, Trey? I think, honestly, it was we had the Ring of Honor event in Tampa, our Monday night broadcast, Atlanta against Tampa. I got down on the field around the old players, and I really got choked up, and I really missed being around the players, being around the game as a coach. So I think that really choked me up. That really pushed me over the edge that night, and here I am, and I'm really excited to be back with the Oakland Raiders.
That is amazing you said that. We were watching that, me and my wife on TV, and after that halftime finish, my wife turned to me and she said, he's going back to coaching. You could just tell when he put that visor on that he wanted to be on the field again. So I think a lot of people thought that as well. So for those of us that will never be a head coach in the NFL or any other sport, when you went back into the big chair again, tell us, what are the first things that you had to do?
Well, number one, you can't do everything at once. You have to take things one step at a time, and I have to hire the best coaching staff possible, Mike. Before I do anything, I have to go out and interview as many people that are interested in the Raiders as possible, and I really feel great about the staff that we have put together here. Before you start talking about plays or talking about the draft or personnel or drills you're going to run or how you're going to run training camp, you got to hire a great staff. I think you win with people, and we are really excited about the group we have assembled here, and it's going to give us a chance now to move into the next phase, which is putting in our offense, putting in our defense, getting ready for the off-season program, getting ready for the draft, but we're off to a really good start.
Well, you certainly are, and you've got maybe 2 of the most important positions filled already, your offensive and defensive coordinators. But, John, whenever I talk to coaches, and especially some that I've had to work with, whether it was you or Herm or Eric Mangini when he was here, when you're a coach, it just becomes part of your DNA. I mean, when I was working with Eric, he was talking about how great it was and the lifestyle, and he was there to put his kids to bed at night. And then he said he went to a coaching seminar somewhere and did some stuff, and he put the clicker in his hand, and he felt like it was his missing finger that had been gone from that hand for a while. Can you explain to people what it is about once you become a coach? How much it's part of your makeup, your literal physical and mental makeup of a person?
Well, you know what? I think there's a lot of teachers out there, elementary teachers, high school teachers, college professors that feel the same way. I think coaching is teaching. Coaching and, building relationship with your team, helping your players be as good as they can possibly be. My mom was a great elementary teacher. It's in our genes. My dad was a coach. You just like being part of a football team or part of an organization that's after one common cause, and that's to win. And I just feel an urgency to try to give back to the Raiders. They were a team that gave me my start, and I want to do everything I can to help this football team and every individual player have a great experience and hopefully win a championship.
And a couple about the Raiders. I mean, in all honesty, you were a little shocked and surprised. Your time ended in Oakland, correct, when you got traded to Tampa Bay?
Yeah, to put it mildly, Mike. Yeah, I got that call at 3:00 in the morning and was traded, and I wasn't looking to leave. I had 4 years here that were really exciting. I was raised by the people in the Black Hole, raised by a lot of people in Oakland. This organization, I think, really fueled my passion to be a coach. We've got 2 years left to play in Oakland. and it's going to be a very emotional time because the team is moving, as you know, to Las Vegas. And I had my third son here in Oakland, and I want to do everything I can to give these fans here in this city something to remember.
Little pro tip there. Just remind us one more time that the 3 o'clock phone call is never good. No matter when the phone rings at 3, it's usually never a good idea. And that's when you found out you were traded. Wow.
So, and then what about the actual Raiders, the black hole, the Raider family? You know, when your introductory press conference, which was pretty darn cool, all the former players there, the greats there, and I said the Raiders do such a great job of bringing some of the former players back to work for the organization, or the family unit that they show and the camaraderie and the backing. Just, you know, for a minute here, give it up to the Raider Nation and Raider family and what they've meant to the NFL.
Well, no doubt. It starts with Al Davis, who was a Hall of Fame owner. He had an incredible vision for this franchise, and his son Mark Davis has taken over the torch, and he has continued that with tremendous, I think, value on the tradition of this organization. And he continues to preach, and I believe it, that the greatness of this franchise is in the future. But you know, I want to include these legendary players, these Raider alumni. I want them to be a part of this organization. I remember when I was here before, I called my dad after a game, Mike. I said, "Hey, Dad, Jim Plunkett and Ted Hendricks and Jack Tatum were on our sideline today." Cliff Branch, I saw Cliff Branch and Bo Jackson would come into meetings, and I got to meet Marcus Allen. Howie Long was here. You know, Willie Brown and Fred Biletnikoff were on my coaching staff. If you don't get excited about that, you don't like football.
No, that's very cool, and there are very few teams that have the pantheon of legendary players that could match up with the ones that the Raiders could trot out there. John Gruden with us, the new head coach, second time around with the Oakland Raiders. John, most teams don't make a change in head coach unless things didn't go well, and clearly that was the case for the Raiders this year. After a 12-4 season in 2016, 6-10 this year, they missed the postseason. So what needs to change right away? What's the one thing that was the glaring weakness that you think needs to get better in 2018 for the Raiders to get back into the postseason chase?
Well, I think continuity. I think we have to have continuity. That's the number one thing I'm trying to create here. We have had different coordinators on offense. We've had different coordinators on defense. I think I'm the 10th head coach in the last, 15 years. We have not had a lot of continuity. We've had, I think, one winning season in the last 15 seasons. So I think we've got to get a system of football, a common ground of operation here that our players can develop under and our scouts can draft into. Just too much change on offense. We've had different defensive coordinators, different offensive coordinators, different snap counts. It's tough to develop any kind of success. So I think continuity is the number one thing. I think with this coaching staff that we have brought in here, hopefully will allow us to do and build on.
Talking to John Gruden, Oakland Raiders head coach, former Raiders head coach, also former coach of the Buccaneers, won the Super Bowl in 2002. As far as the current game and the teams playing this week, and one player in particular, because I saw a clip of you with him at your coach's camp with Case Keenum, the quarterback from Houston, the college Houston, when you had him there. And I loved the conversation you had with him of basically just always be ready. Always be ready. You never know when your opportunity is going to come along. I mean, that couldn't have been more prophetic for what's happening to him, and really in the larger picture for players overall, one you're going to coach and one certainly in Case Keenum, to make sure you put yourself in a position to be ready when you get the chance.
I think it's a great lesson for all of us. You know, I'm no different than Case Keenum. You know, I had a guy, Mike Holmgren, that believed in me, gave me a chance. And who would have thought a backup quarterback at the University of Dayton would ever be a head coach in the NFL? Someone down the road will believe in you, and you're going to get a chance. And if you're ready, you might be able to take advantage of it. And that's what I loved about Keenum. I mean, he threw for 60,000 yards in college. He was phenomenal, and he was just undersized, and he had an injury. And I think people look at him physically and they think he doesn't have the traits and measurables that we're looking for. But, you know, Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, there's a lot of quarterbacks in different sizes and shapes that are excelling at a high level. And I'm just really happy for this man. He is a great kid, and I'm rooting for him.
Well, you finished up that clip when you said, I believe in you. What did you see in his game that made you think, hey, despite the size and the injury and, the spread offense and all that kind of stuff, that he really could do what he's been doing?
Well, he has a lot of arm talent. He has very good athleticism that's underrated, and he has a passion to play. His dad was a coach. This is all he wants to do. He is centered and grounded off the field. He's a very religious, humble man. He's got leadership. But when the game starts, and Golic will tell you, there are some guys off the field that seem so pure and so innocent and so great, but when they put that helmet on, he becomes a very mad, raging pit bull, and that's Case Keenum. He loves to compete, he loves to fight, and loves to scratch, and I really appreciate that about him.
So, John, you've been the head coach of the Raiders for about 10 days now. Can you tell us the number of hours you've already had watching film?
Yeah, it's been a lot. Mike, it's you can tell I'm already worn out. I'm wondering, I woke up in the middle of the night in my hotel. I wondered where I was. I'm still in a blur. But we have a lot to do. We're very excited about the coaching staff. Now it's a matter of what are we going to call this formation? What are we going to call this protection? How are we going to get the left tackle to block down? We got to go through every nuance of football from the very beginning, and I am having a blast.
Well, just call everything Spider 2Y banana and you're good.
You'll see the fullback in the flat at some point, Trey.
Come on, that's just like Omaha. It means everything. That meant everything to Peyton. It means everything to you. Well, and having spent time with John preparing for the draft, nobody does film better than John. John, we appreciate you being with us. It was a delight to have you on the show today. I really enjoyed our time together on the draft. We'll miss you on the draft this year, but maybe we'll get you for a satellite interview one of the 3 days. Is that fair?
Let's hope so. And you guys are always welcome. Come and visit, man.
Thanks, Coach.
John, we appreciate it. Take care.
All right, guys.
Quick note. Pretty cool thing. I obviously know Charlie Weiss. He coached my kids at Notre Dame, and I'm trying to do as much as I can for he and his wife Mara's foundation of Hannah and Friends. His son Charlie Jr. has been into coaching. He was at Alabama, helping out there. Then when he was over at FAU when Lane Kiffin went there as a tight end coach, he spent some time with Steve Sarkisian with the Atlanta Falcons when he went there. Now it looks like he's going back to FAU with Lane Kiffin, and it looks like he's going to be the offensive coordinator.
Wow.
He's going to be the youngest offensive coordinator in FBS. It could be in modern college football history. He's 24.
Wow.
24.
That's pretty impressive.
Considered a very a bright young mind in the game. Certainly could learn, from his father.
Might have a resource to fall back on.
I would say so, but congrats to him. 24 years old. And Lane Kiffin, listen, Lane Kiffin will definitely, step out of the box a little bit and take some chances. And there's a 24-year-old who's put in some years already, but still, that's very, very young. You remember, Sean McVay.
Yep.
Remember Sean McVay first started coaching, I think it was with Tampa Bay as an assistant wide receiver coach at like 22, and now at 31 as a head coach in the NFL. So congrats. They haven't announced it yet, but all the reports say that he's going to be named the offensive coordinator.
Field Yates is one of the ones reporting that, right?
Very, Yates, 24 years old. That's very cool.
It is very cool. Congratulations to him. And it makes perfect sense for this segment on radio that we're doing, that we start with someone very young, doing something very accomplished, because today is a birthday for someone who's a national treasure.
Yes, she is.
Betty White turned 96 today.
Are you kidding me?
And I'm not sure anybody has done the 70s, 80s, and 90s better than Betty White.
She needs to live forever because the scary
build
thing
that wall around Betty White.
All of a sudden, you read when you see all of a sudden Betty White's trending, you're going, oh God,
no, not that.
And then you're like, oh, it's her birthday.
No, it's good. Absolutely,
okay, it's a cool thing.
So we were trying to figure out, because someone in their 70s is a septuagenarian. Septuagenarian, is that what it is? Yeah. And then octogenarian is in their 80s. So I sort of jokingly said, what is it, a nanagarian in the 90s? And that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Nonagarian. So that's what she is. And it's also sort of interesting because of what's happening this weekend. We talked about the super fan Millie from Minnesota, who at 99 years old went to her first ever playoff game last week against the Saints. She had been to the old stadiums, Metropolitan Stadium and the Metrodome, but she'd never been to the new stadium.
Right.
So the Vikings gave her tickets to go to that, and she witnessed the greatest thing that's had never happened before in a playoff
walk-off
game.
touchdown,
a walk-off touchdown. So Millie got there. Roger Goodell was at the game, gave her tickets to the Super Bowl.
Right.
So she's going, and hopefully she'll go there watching her home team, the Minnesota Vikings. But to get there, they've got to take care of the Eagles in Philadelphia. And they have their own nonagenarian, Phil Basser, 99 years old, is going to be at the NFC Championship game. He was born in an orphanage in 1918, fought in World War II and Korea, and then ran his own ad agency. So we've got Millie versus Phil in Philly.
That's incredible.
It's great stuff.
99 years old, Phil. And you know what he's going to want?
Yeah.
Super Bowl tickets as well.
Why wouldn't he?
I would completely agree.
Why wouldn't he? So
Roger's going to be like, I got 2 more I got to give out now.
How many seats do I have to give away?
Because one of these 2 is going to use them.
That's
because
exactly
the winner's going to the Super Bowl, so someone's going to use them.
So it's just a great story to see
really
these
is.
2 loyal fans, both Millie and Minnesota. By the way, that's why I'm calling it's not the Hail Mary, it's the Hail Millie.
Hail Millie.
It's the Hail Millie. What happened in Minnesota. And Phil, the 99-year-old Phil Basser, good for him, twice a veteran, serving our country. Thank you. A salute to you, sir. We wish both Millie and Philly all the best, and may the best team win on Championship Sunday. That's terrific. All right, guests coming up tomorrow. Stu Gotts is here, Adam Schefter, and Mel Kiper Jr. with Mock Draft 1.0.
Oh, boy.
Thursday on Golic and Wingo. See you tomorrow.
See you.
Hello, I'd like to deposit this to checking.
Fate is a fickle master.
What?
The future is uncertain.
Okay, and what's my account balance?
The horizon is cloudy. I see a long, treacherous voyage filled with great peril.
Look, can I just get a deposit slip or something?
A fortune bank teller. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I see a yellow-eyed serpent and a low APR.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.